What if I told you the most heartwarming film ever made was born from loneliness and divorce? What if the alien that made millions cry was operated by a legless man walking on his hands? What if the studio that rejected this masterpiece watched it become the highest-grossing film in history? Harrison Ford filmed a scene that was completely erased from existence. A dying child met E.T., and something unexplainable happened. The government tried to use this film as actual propaganda, and Steven Spielberg cried so hard during filming that he could barely direct. These are 20 facts that will change everything you know about E.T. Before we dive into video, please subscribe to our channel. Fact 1. E.T. was born from Spielberg's childhood loneliness. Steven Spielberg created E.T. from the pain of his parents' divorce when he was a child. His father left the family, and young Steven felt abandoned and completely alone. He invented an imaginary alien friend to cope with the emptiness in his life. That imaginary companion became the foundation for the character of E.T. decades later. Spielberg poured his childhood trauma into the script and the emotional core of the story. The loneliness Elliot feels in the film mirrors what Spielberg experienced growing up. He wanted to create the friend he always wished he had during those difficult years. E.T. was not just a movie character, but a therapeutic creation born from genuine childhood pain. Fact 2. Columbia Pictures rejected E.T. and regretted it forever. Columbia Pictures had the chance to make E.T. before any other studio saw the script. They rejected it completely, calling the concept uncommercial and too childish for audiences. The executives could not understand why anyone would care about a boy and his alien friend. They passed on the project without hesitation and moved on to other films. Universal Pictures quickly grabbed the rights and greenlit production immediately. When E.T. became the highest-grossing film in history, Columbia executives were devastated. The film they rejected earned nearly $800 million worldwide during its original release. Columbia's rejection became one of the most infamous mistakes in Hollywood studio history. Fact 3. The E.T. puppet cost $1.5 million to build. The E.T. puppet was an engineering marvel that cost $1.5 million to create. Carlo Rambaldi designed and built the animatronic creature over many months of development. The puppet contained sophisticated mechanical systems that allowed incredibly realistic facial expressions. Over a dozen operators were required to control all of E.T.'s movements simultaneously. The eyes alone required multiple technicians to achieve the emotional depth Spielberg wanted. E.T. could blink and move his eyes and change expressions in real time during filming. The puppet was so lifelike that child actors genuinely believed they were interacting with a real creature. Rambaldi won an Academy Award for his extraordinary technical achievement. Fact 4. A legless man operated E.T. in many scenes. Matthew DeCoster was a young man born without legs who operated E.T. in several key scenes. He would walk on his hands inside the E.T. costume, creating the alien's unique waddling movement. His unusual physical abilities allowed him to move in ways that seemed truly inhuman and alien. The production also used a young boy named Tamara Detrow who stood only 2 feet 7 inches tall. She wore the E.T. costume for scenes requiring the alien to walk around sets. Pat Belon, another small performer, also wore the costume during certain sequences. The combination of these 3 performers created the illusion of a single living creature. Fact 5. Harrison Ford filmed a scene that was completely deleted. Harrison Ford filmed a scene as the principal of Elliot's school that was entirely cut from the film. Ford was dating Melissa Matheson, who wrote the E.T. screenplay at the time. He agreed to appear as a favor to her and filmed his scene during production. The scene showed Elliot being scolded after the chaos caused by E.T. at school. Spielberg decided to remove the scene because Ford's star presence was too distracting. Audiences would recognize Indiana Jones, and it would break the intimate spell of the story. The footage has never been released and remains locked in the Universal vaults. Fact 6. The children never saw the full E.T. puppet before filming. Spielberg deliberately kept the child actors away from the E.T. puppet before their first scene together. He wanted their initial reactions to seeing the alien to be completely genuine and unrehearsed. Henry Thomas, who played Elliot, had no idea what E.T. would look like until cameras rolled. His wonder and surprise in those early scenes is authentic emotional response. Drew Barrymore was only 6 years old and genuinely believed E.T. was real throughout production. Spielberg maintained this illusion carefully to capture pure, innocent reactions from his young cast. The children's authentic wonder became the emotional core of the entire film. Fact 7. Drew Barrymore was only 6 years old during filming. Drew Barrymore was cast as Gertie when she was only 6 years old and full of imagination. She completely believed that E.T. was a real living creature during the entire production. Spielberg encouraged this belief and never told her the alien was just a mechanical puppet. Barrymore would talk to E.T. between takes and bring him drawings she made at home. She became so attached that she cried when filming ended and she had to say goodbye. Her genuine emotional connection to the puppet created some of the film's most touching moments. Barrymore's innocent belief in E.T. made her performance completely authentic and heartbreaking. Fact 8. Henry Thomas got the role by making Spielberg cry. Henry Thomas auditioned for the role of Elliot by improvising an emotional scene about loss. Casting directors asked him to pretend his best friend was leaving and he would never see them again. Thomas drew from the real memory of his dog dying to generate genuine tears. His performance was so powerful that Steven Spielberg began crying in the audition room. Spielberg knew immediately that he had found his Elliot after watching that audition. Thomas was only 9 years old, but demonstrated emotional depth beyond his years. No other child actor came close to matching what Thomas delivered that day. Fact 9. The famous flying bicycle scene almost did not happen. The iconic shot of Elliot flying across the moon on his bicycle almost did not make it into the film. Spielberg was unsure whether the image would look magical or ridiculous on screen. The visual effects team created the shot using a combination of models and optical compositing. When Spielberg saw the finished effect, he knew it would become the defining image of the film. The shot was added to promotional materials and became the official logo for Amblin Entertainment. That single image has been reproduced billions of times in the decades since release. A shot Spielberg almost cut became the most recognized movie image of the 1,980 seconds. Fact 10. M and Ms. rejected product placement and Reese's Pieces became famous. The production originally wanted to use M and Ms as the candy Elliot uses to lure E.T. inside. Mars Incorporated rejected the product placement opportunity without explanation or negotiation. They did not believe the film would be successful enough to justify participation. Hershey agreed to provide Reese's Pieces instead and changed their company's history forever. After E.T. was released, Reese's Pieces sales increased by 65% almost immediately. The candy became synonymous with the film and remained popular for decades afterward. Mars executives watched their competitor benefit from their rejection for years. The decision to reject E.T. became one of the worst marketing mistakes in corporate history. Fact 11. Spielberg shot the film in chronological order. Steven Spielberg made the unusual decision to film E.T. in exact chronological order. Most films shoot scenes out of order based on location availability and scheduling efficiency. Spielberg wanted the child actors to experience the emotional journey alongside their characters. As Elliot's relationship with E.T. deepened, the actors' connections grew naturally over time. When the sad ending arrived, the children were genuinely mourning the end of their experience. Their real emotions about production ending merged with their characters' grief about losing E.T. This technique created authentic emotional performances that would have been impossible otherwise. Fact 12. The government wanted to use E.T. for anti-drug campaigns. After E.T. became a cultural phenomenon, the United States government approached Spielberg with a request. They wanted to create anti-drug public service announcements featuring the beloved alien character. The campaign would show E.T. telling children to stay away from drugs and alcohol. Spielberg initially agreed, and a campaign was developed using the character. However, he later had second thoughts about using E.T. for political messaging. The campaign was scaled back significantly from what the government originally proposed. E.T. did appear in some limited anti-drug materials during the 1,980 seconds. Fact 13. A dying child met E.T. and something unexplainable happened. During production, a young boy with terminal cancer requested to visit the set and meet E.T. Spielberg, arranged for the child to spend time with the puppet between filming scenes. The boy was weak and barely responsive when he arrived on set that day. When E.T. was brought in and placed near him, something remarkable happened. The child became animated and began talking and smiling for the first time in weeks. His parents were overwhelmed watching their son come alive in the presence of the puppet. Spielberg was deeply moved by witnessing the healing power his creation could provide. The experience reinforced his belief that E.T. was something more than just a movie. Fact 14. John Williams created the score in just 8 weeks. John Williams composed the legendary E.T. score in an incredibly compressed time frame. He had only 8 weeks to create one of the most emotional soundtracks in cinema history. Williams worked closely with Spielberg to ensure every musical cue matched the emotional beats perfectly. The flying sequence required Williams to compose music first so Spielberg could edit the visuals to match. This was the opposite of how film scoring usually works, with music following picture. The result was a perfect fusion of image and sound that moved audiences to tears. Williams won the Academy Award for Best Original Score for his extraordinary work. Fact 15. The film was shot in only 61 days. E.T. was filmed in just 61 days, which was remarkably fast for a production of its scale. Spielberg's meticulous preparation and storyboarding allowed him to work with incredible efficiency. He knew exactly what shots he needed before arriving on set each day. The production came in under budget, which was unusual for Spielberg at that point in his career. Universal executives were impressed by his discipline and financial responsibility throughout filming. The efficient production proved that Spielberg had learned from his earlier expensive experiences. E.T. became both an artistic and financial triumph because of this careful approach. Fact 16. Spielberg cried throughout filming. Steven Spielberg was emotionally overwhelmed throughout the production of E.T. Repeatedly. He would cry during emotional scenes and sometimes had difficulty giving direction through his tears. The story connected so deeply to his own childhood pain that he could not remain detached. Cast and crew members noticed that Spielberg was experiencing something deeply personal during filming. He later said that making E.T. was like therapy for his childhood wounds. The film allowed him to process emotions he had buried for decades. His raw emotional state translated into a film that makes audiences cry decades later. Fact 17. The E.T. design was based on multiple sources. Carlo Rambaldi based E.T.'s face on several different inspirations blended together carefully. The eyes were modeled after those of Ernest Hemingway and Albert Einstein. Rambaldi wanted wisdom and intelligence to shine through the alien's expressive gaze. The overall facial structure drew inspiration from pugs and other flat-faced creatures. E.T.'s neck was designed to extend and retract like a turtle for expressiveness. The combination created something that seemed both alien and strangely familiar to audiences. People felt they recognized something human in E.T.'s face without knowing exactly what. Fact 18. The communicator device used real NASA technology. The device E.T. builds to phone home incorporated real NASA technology and concepts. Production designers consulted with scientists about what an alien communication device might actually look like. They included elements that reflected genuine scientific principles about interstellar communication. The speak and spell toy used as the base was cutting-edge technology for 1982. The combination of household items and alien technology created something believable and imaginative. Children who watched the film tried building their own communicators using similar household objects. The design inspired a generation of young people to become interested in science and technology. Fact 19. The ending was almost completely different. The original ending of E.T. was significantly different from what audiences eventually saw. Early drafts had E.T. dying and not coming back to life before the spaceship arrived. Spielberg filmed this darker ending but felt it was too devastating for young audiences. Test screenings confirmed that children were traumatized by E.T., dying without resurrection. Spielberg added the sequence where E.T.'s heart glows and he returns to life. The revised ending still moved audiences to tears but provided hope and closure. The decision to resurrect E.T. made the film more accessible without sacrificing emotional impact. Fact 20. The government agents originally had guns. The government agents pursuing Elliot and E.T. originally carried guns in the filmed version. Spielberg later regretted showing weapons pointed at children even in a fantasy context. For the 20th anniversary re-release, he digitally replaced the guns with walkie-talkies.